Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ministry Matters podcast. My name is Rohan, and along with my wife, Jill, we serve as the lead pastors of a 3-small location multi-site church, C3 Camden, Picton and Thirroul in southwestern Sydney and the Illawarra. On this podcast, Jill and I discuss all matters ministry and share some of the things we've learned and are still learning along the way in our 30 plus years of pastoral ministry experience. It's our particular hope that this podcast will be of help to small church pastors and their teams and encourage you to continue to minister effectively to the wonderful people that God has entrusted into your care. The views that we express on this podcast are our own and not necessarily those of the church or denomination that we're a part of. We'd love to hear from you if you have any feedback, any comments or suggestions on any topics you'd like us to discuss in future episodes. To find out more about us or our church, check out the show notes for links to all the relevant socials and websites. So without any further ado, let's get into today's conversation.
Hello and welcome back to Ministry Matters podcast. Great to have you with us.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for being with us for this episode.
So we're going to jump in today and talk about rest and holidays.
Yes, we've got one coming up, haven't we?
It's a fun topic.
We actually had something else in mind, which we'll probably record after this one, but we're just in between recording episodes and you said, let's talk about rest. Maybe you had a holiday on your mind.
It is a little bit on my mind.
It is on your mind. We're ready for a holiday.
Part of the fun of a holiday is organising the holiday, we find.
Yes, it is indeed. Yep,
sometimes.
It is indeed. Yep. So we've got that coming up, but it is an important topic, and so we haven't got any notes in front of us, so we're just going to go completely. I mean, sometimes we have notes and we go off script, but we've got no script to start with. So apologies in advance if this is a bit all over the shop, but we just thought let's talk about this issue of planning rest. This is applicable to pastors and a core value within our teams. I mean, one of the probably things that has come out considerably among evangelical, charismatic, Pentecostal churches in recent times has probably been that there has at times been a culture where rest hasn't been encouraged. It's like push. That's what you need to do, and there's been some pushback because of the flow-on effect of lack of emotional and mental health for people and feeling used and underappreciated, and obviously it's not functional to continue like that. So there's
performance and productivity,
all that
culture.
sort of stuff.
And that's just, I think that's been across the board in our culture as well, not just in the church, but yes, in the church, but also across the board. I was in a 2-day training last week with about 18 people in the community sector, and that was discussed there. That we have been a society very focused on productivity and performance, and there's a real pressure around that's made people very weary and very
I wonder if that's partly what has caused this great falling away or great resignation, they call it, is that people have realised that since COVID, and they've realised maybe those things that we thought were as important aren't necessarily as important as they were made out to be. So we're facing that. Obviously, one of the big challenges, if you're a small church pastor listening to this, if you're on a team, you know as well as we do, there's a pretty good chance that, I'm not going to say 100% across every church, but there's a pretty good chance your church is having less available volunteers. People aren't necessarily putting their hand up the way that maybe they did pre-COVID. And if you're an exception to that, fantastic. But that's been our experience personally and in conversationally with others. And I think that's not all bad. It is probably that there might have been some times where it was a bit stretched. But I wonder if there's a way we can encourage rest and then move forward. I've had a sermon, I'm just thinking about this. I've had a sermon I've preached multiple times over many years now, and I've morphed it a little bit. You often preach it over the Christmas holidays about the concept of holidays. And I based it on the biblical model of what a holiday was. I mean, holiday, no surprises here, folks. Holiday means holy day, and it, the whole concept of having time out came from the whole biblical feasts, Israel feasts and so on. But I think one of the things that, our society has done is that, there was been a big push in the more recent years for people to use up their annual leave. It was almost like a badge of honor if you didn't take your annual leave if you were working. I've got so many weeks owing to me, that's a badge of honor. I think our society has realised and is realising that's not the case across the board. There's lots of, you can just Google articles about this and you'll see that's been unhealthy. And many employers are picking up on that now and actually saying, we want you to take more leave. We need you to take more leave. And if you don't, we're going to force you to take it.
Overall, I think when we look at our productivity, and it's not that it's about productivity, but even if we were looking at it from that perspective around this thing of rest and slowing down and holidays, taking holidays, all those kind of things, I think when we look at our well-being and our longevity, we believe in longevity, and we look at ourselves as a holistic person, body, soul, spirit, that reality is we live in a body and our body needs rest.
Yes.
God made us, He designed us around rest. He said on the seventh day there was rest.
Yep.
And we sleep every night. We're not created to
Remember
be on.
Ken Chance saying years ago, that people arrogantly say, I only need 4 hours sleep a night. He goes, you're not that important to God.
Yeah.
And I've never forgotten that. It's like 30-something years ago. You're not that important to God. God gave you need for 6 to 8 hours rest. Take it.
Yeah. We all go lie down in the dark and do nothing for 8 hours so our body can recharge. And that's the way we're designed.
Yeah.
And so I think when we think about our, overall about, and like you mentioned before about even through Bible times, even the Old Testament, they would have these holy days.
Standard 4 to 5 hours, 4 to 5 weeks a year where they didn't do it. And it was actually a trust thing.
Yeah, they take time away from their normal everyday habits.
It's the same principle as tithing. It's the same. It's all linked into, do I trust God? And when they would leave, God would even say to them, I want you to go and have a holiday. The holy day, go to Jerusalem, have a holiday, and trust that while you're gone, I'll look after your land, I'll look after your crops. So it ultimately was, in hindsight, you could go, well, I could work 7 days a week and I'd get more productivity, or I could not have any annual leave and I'd get more productivity. But it's that recognition that God is our provider and He has given us limits. Peter Scazzero talks about the gift of our limitations, and this is one area where it's really healthy to take limitations. I was raised in a culture where it wasn't do that. In the early years of my Christian life, it was almost looked down upon. In the first 15 years of my Christian life, probably in many ways the culture was looked down upon to take rest. Whereas we've been
even the upbringing that we were certainly I was brought up in was
go hard or go home.
Being productive, working hard was a really high level of ethical standard, and we never really had very many holidays when I was young. That wouldn't be everyone's experience, but it was mine. My parents had their own business, and so it's hard when you have your own business to get away. And I guess you could say that a little bit about church ministry. It's a little bit like, but I run this thing, I do it. How can I possibly not be here?
I'm a pastor. I need to be here, or I'm a team leader. That doesn't function without me.
Well, it's hard because I remember it's like with Dad. He had to replace himself to be able to go away. He couldn't just take leave and walk away. It would impact a lot of things. So but however, because it's important, and we've got it as one of our guiding principles for our church.
We value rest
as a value of rest, and that we don't want teams saying to us, "Oh no, I don't need rest. I'm going to work. I'm just going to do 3 jobs, and I'm going to add this on, and I'm going to be like, no, actually, what we rest is valuable, and we are looking at your whole being." And your body, you're not going to be able to do this for the long haul. And we're about longevity.
Yeah.
And then we've seen so much burnout in our society. Look, I'll be honest. I'll tell you now. We only had leave we took some time off in May, but since then, we've had a lot of different, extra, and this we could all say that there's always something going on. But, I've had some health challenges this year, and we've had some extra things that we weren't anticipating that have kind of hit our radar, which happens some years. And it's been a really full-on few months. So I think we are looking forward to this next lot of leave we have, and we're not just looking forward to it, we need it.
We'll probably be on leave about the time you're watching this, listening to this podcast.
Yeah,
actually, if you're listening to it in real time, yeah.
So, I do think that we need to live in a way, as much as possible. It can be idealistic to say this, but I think it's worth saying that we should aim to live in a way that is not like work hard, then smash, then crash and have a big time off.
No.
I think we should try and have every day as much as possible, looking at what we can in our schedule, have a bit of a decompression time, have some downtime, have some space in our day,
Remember the
have
whole
some quiet
3
in our
minutes,
day.
3 days, 3 weeks mentality. Remember that?
Sounds good in theory, but
yeah,
I've
it
never
sounds
done
good
it.
in theory, but it's the principle of 3 minutes every hour just to decompress, focus, stare out the window, do something. 3 days every quarter, and then 3 weeks at least once a year. And that's a good principle, just to have that scope to completely unwind, a minimum of sort of 3 weeks thereabouts, just to completely switch off and refresh. And back to what I was saying before, we had all this humming on the microphone. Back at that point, I was saying part of that message was a revelation that came to me years ago, which is I'd get through my holiday, whether whatever we did, we went away on a holiday, and I'd be going, I'd be back in my office and I'd be going, this time last week I was, on a cruise, or this time last week I was on a holiday, or I was camping or whatever, and I was living for the holiday. And I realized that's not sustainable and that's not healthy. And as I started to understand it theologically, I started to realize that we don't live for holidays, we live for work. Holidays are not supposed to be an escape from work. This is how I've phrased it. And I've had lots of people feedback to me how this has helped them over the years. I don't take credit for it. I think it came from revelation from the Lord. But holidays are not an escape from reality. They are a recharge for reality.
Yeah.
So if we can view it and change our mindset to that, to go, I'm completely off, I'm going to enjoy this. But the purpose is when I go back to real life, when I go back to reality, I'm expecting that I will be refreshed and recharged and able to go back to that rather than longing to be on holidays. And I think, we're looking forward to a holiday now, but I'm also aware that I'm expecting that we'll come back and hit the ground running and we'll be in our Christmas season. And I'm expecting that, okay, that's a full on time. Some of our team will take time off, a pastoral team will take time off over Christmas, New Year, and we won't, in that sense, but we're ready for that because we will have had that little break. So we try to, as much as possible, not live for our holidays, but see them as a nice downtime and a refreshment time for the ministry life, don't we?
Yeah, that's right. I was just thinking about scripture in Isaiah 58 where it talks about you will be like a well-watered garden. And I've been thinking about that lately. It talks about the promises of how we can be. And before that, it says all these things that to do. It says, feed the hungry, reach out, do all these things about being outward focused. And I love that. I love being outward focused.
Yes.
And then it says, but then there's this promise of, and this is what God would say to you, you'll be refreshed, you'll be like a well-watered garden. But I think, we can't just assume that doing, giving out, and we're going to be like a well-watered garden. We have to listen to ourselves. We have to lead ourselves. We have to be led by the Spirit. We have to be aware of intentionally going, all right, like all the things we've just said, we're holistic beings. Our bodies need sleep. Our bodies need rest. How are we going to set our calendar for the year? Let's put our holidays in.
We actually put our anticipated holidays into our church calendar. If you're a pastor, this is some advice we've received over the years. You need to be working on your calendar for next year about, October or something, and putting in all your anticipated holidays and Sundays off and so on. Put the big stones in first, and holidays and your leave is important for you. And then even for some of your key team as well. If you have key pastoral team or key department leaders, I know it doesn't work for everybody. Some people don't have the luxury of picking their leave as far in advance, but wherever it's possible, if you can have, and it values your team as well. If they know that, we're important enough here that our leaders are going to miss us or plan around us. Values them, but it gives them scope to know, okay, your leave's in the calendar as well, and we'll try not to plan things when a member of our key team is around. And if you do that first, it's very hard to do that retrospectively. Once you've gone and put in events and special Sundays and all that, it's very hard then to go and squeeze your leave in. So that's a good way to go, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And I think, the thing is, don't be too spiro to think you don't need downtime. sometimes I've had the tendency to, we've had the tendency to do something naughty, which I'm going to say isn't a good idea, and that's to go, oh, I've got a few things on that week. I'll take the leave, but I'll still there's a few things that I can't not do. And this is probably because we haven't organised it far enough out to get ourselves out of those things. So we go, I'll still take the leave. It's all right, I'll have a whole day off. I'll just do that 1 hour thing. It doesn't work. To have to re-engage yourself for that 1 hour thing that you think will be fine, it's only an hour, I don't think is healthy. I think we need a total break. I think it takes us, they say, it takes us time.
It takes you a week to wind down.
It takes us time to wind down.
And it takes you a few days to wind up too. So if you had a 2 year break, two-year break sounds nice. If you've had a 2 week break, you're probably just barely winding down and you're winding back up again. So, if you can, as a pastor especially, you need to have a good solid block of leave.
Yeah, and we didn't intend to talk about this. The other thing I would say would be around long service leave. There's lots of, we know quite a few people who have been over 10 years and have got long service leave, and they're thinking, oh, I can never, think about how I could possibly take long service leave over and above my annual leave. It's just I couldn't be away for that long. Again, you have to think about that. You have to plan around that. Get some, talk to
a coach, talk to someone who can support you.
Coach, mentor, oversight, other pastors, people you network with. Have some thought about what you could do to ensure that you can have that break. You do give yourself that solid amount of time while ensuring that things are covered in the church.
Definitely, you need it. You need to have that time. I mean, Jesus took time. I think it says numbers of times. Jesus often withdrew to lonely places.
Yeah.
He got away. One of mine that is one of my favourites. I haven't got the scripture reference in front of me because we haven't got notes in front of us. But I often say Jesus took a beach holiday. People go, what? And I say there's one time where Jesus actually said to people, said to his guys, hey guys, we're going to withdraw. It says Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon, which is up on the Mediterranean coastline, quite away from Galilee. Beautiful. He said basically Jesus went and had a Mediterranean holiday. Now, while he was there was a Syro-Phoenician woman who said, I need help with my daughter, and Jesus wasn't so inconvenienced that he said sorry. I mean, he still healed.
We still be Christians on our
You can still be Christians on your holiday. That's right. But Jesus, obviously, he's in the hustle and bustle of people around, and he actually went probably what was a couple of 100 kilometres away, up onto what is now modern day Lebanon, up on the border of the Mediterranean to have a beach holiday because there's something refreshing about that. So if Jesus can do it, we can do it, and we should do it too.
Yeah, and one of the amazing things, just thinking about that, and on that well-watered, you'll be like a well-watered garden. Sometimes we're just a bit like an average sort of plant that's maybe on a bit of the dry side, and we actually do need to be really well-watered, and we need to be refreshed.
Yes.
And that is maybe enjoying nature. It is maybe rest. It is maybe whatever we need to do recreationally to detach.
Whatever recharges us.
And, I love the scripture. I think I've said this before where, they're out on the boat and Jesus takes a pillow and he has a snooze.
Yep, you love that one, don't you?
Even Jesus needed to have a snooze, took his pillow with him on the boat in the scripture where it talks about the storm.
Yep.
And I think that is, that tells us that even Jesus was like, you know what, you guys can handle this for a while. I'm going to have a lie down.
Yeah, it's great.
And I think that, realising that we're not indispensable and actually we'll come back. If we can come back well-watered and refreshed, I'm always amazed when I'm away at how many new ideas spark, how many just things that I think of that not that I go looking for new ministry ideas, it's not that, but just how many things that I think that come to my mind that are just like these beautiful fresh thoughts that just wouldn't have happened in the everyday of life.
Yeah, by actually unwinding and taking time off to rest the brain, those sorts of things can happen, can't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so a few things that come to mind practically is put your own leave in, talk to your team. We try to encourage our teams to not be on every Sunday. We actually started putting it into our leaders' agreements to say we want you to have a certain number of Sundays off. Yeah, because I can't be taking Sundays off and then not giving time to my team to have Sundays off.
Yeah.
You get some leaders who need to understand, like they go, oh, it's not my Sunday on, I'm off completely. Well, if you're there and you're a leader, you're on to some regard. I mean, that's the nature of leadership. People are looking to us, but because of that, because if you're a leader and you're on, say you're leading the hosting team, but you're not rostered on anything that day. Well, while you're in the church on a Sunday, you are going to be on to some regard. People will be looking to you, and there will be a sense in which a mature leader, a responsible leader will be looking at things and saying, what can I do? But for that very reason, there has to be times in the year where you have annual leave. You take time off, where you go away and have it scheduled in as well and go, I'm not going to be there on that Sunday, and plan it far enough in advance that the team knows and your pastor knows and whatever, and take time away. Sometimes our leaders will go, oh, I'll just show up at church. I'll actually say to them, it's probably better if you don't, because if you do show up, everyone's going to be thinking about you. You're still switched off. If you want to go to church, go visit another church, but do whatever you need to do just to give yourself scope to be refreshed rather than be on all the time. Yeah. And so I would say that to all people. And will that have flow-on effects? Yes, it will. It will have flow-on effects in terms of availability, because our teams are less available, and that can go at all levels down through the all levels down through the organisation, through the church. But the flow-on effects can be, yes, you'll have less people available, but the positive flow-on effects of that are all the things you've just said. People will come refreshed, they feel valued, they've got new creative ideas. We cannot underestimate.
Hopefully they'll be smiling, and they'll be feeling healthier, they'll be feeling happier.
Not jaded.
Yeah, makes a big difference.
So keeping that value of rest. And, we don't, some churches do, we don't, I personally theologically don't think there's a New Testament law that says keep the Sabbath like 100% religiously. However, the principle of Sabbath is there. And I think even the principle of having downtime, having a day off, or having space in your world, whatever that is, where you actually do detach from whatever your normal life is. So if it's work and you work in a secular job as a leader in the church, detach from that. If you're in pastoral ministry, have a day where you detach from that. And I don't always do it 100%. I try to when, we try as best as we can. But if you can do that, it's much better for you to be able to refresh yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. We have to be intentional about this. We have to create this culture. It won't happen if we don't intentionalize it. No. There'll always be the tyranny of the urgent. There'll always be something where we feel like, oh, but I'm needed for that.
I've had people say to me, oh, well, I can't do it because my boss doesn't do it. Well, that's a challenge. If you're a pastor listening to this, you can set the culture within your church.
Yeah.
If you're taking downtime, you can set that culture and not expect others to respond to emails in the middle of the night and all that sort of stuff. But if you're working and your boss doesn't do it, there is a tension there. But there are practicals that you can do. I mean, you have to just not have a negative defeatist attitude to it. There are things you can do, like making sure that you switch off your notifications so you're not just getting constantly bombarded, especially when you're on holidays and things like that.
I heard someone say the other day on a podcast that about, and I'm not saying I do this, but it was just an interesting thought about putting your phone outside your bedroom, and not having it in your room at night.
No.
That something to get you away from that default, which a lot of us have, of responding to everything immediately.
Yeah.
Just to give ourselves that margin and that space. Yeah. Again, it's for longevity. You might think, oh, it's all right. It's all right. It might be all right once or twice, but when we're doing that over and over and over again, and when we're setting a culture whereby people expect us to respond straight away, because that's what we always did last time, and then when they think something's wrong and they think we've offended them, or they wonder, I think we've got to set a culture whereby we think about what's going to work for us, and we normalise that, and our the people we work with for our team, so that we're not, because there's no point us saying to our team, oh, you don't have to do that, but then us.
Yes, true.
Us do that.
So this is the stuff that Pete Scazzero has always been big on. Is in church life is rectifying that. Maybe people can't do it because they're in an employee situation in their workplace where there are demands on them that are unrealistic. But hey, if we are going to reinforce those unhealthy expectations within church life, we're not doing them to service. So it's not doing them a service. So it's a discipleship issue to help our people understand the value of rest, understand the value of downtime.
And this is frontline work.
Yes.
We are working in frontline work where we are dealing with crises of people's lives, from height of, wonderful things to depth of, pain,
loss and grief and
death, all kinds of things. And, in secular training and frontline work, they talk about decompression, they talk about debriefing, they talk about self-care, they talk about longevity, they talk about these things, about what are you going to do, because they realise that the burnout rate is high. And so, yes, we have Jesus and we have the restoration of that he brings and the Spirit brings. But I think we need to be aware that we're in a body and we're not superhuman, and let's not get too spiro with this. Let's be sensible.
Great.
We know it ourselves, don't we? That we know when we get tired. And we know,
totally. Yeah,
we know. Partly why we're doing this now is because we were like, you know what, we're looking forward to our holiday in a few weeks. Let's talk about holidays.
Yeah, and that's that recognition. I've become more aware of that through years of coaching and mentoring and so on. The importance of recognizing those signs and learned. I'm much more attuned to that.
They're a bit more self-regulated too.
Yes, that's
Listen
right.
to yourself.
That comes with time.
Or
yeah.
ask someone if you don't notice it yourself. Ask someone near you.
Totally.
Do you think? How do you think I am? Am I being a bit more, quick-tempered?
Tense,
Am I being tense? Am I being driven? Am I stressed? Am I,
exactly.
etc.
Yeah.
Ask your team. Do a 360 with them, and let them tell you whether they think you need a holiday. They'll probably be like, "Go on your holiday."
Yeah, go away. Yeah. Well, with all that in mind, I guess as we wrap up this episode, then that maybe that's a simple one where you can put some thoughts in mind as to what next year will look like for you. If you're listening to this late 2023, what would 2024 look like? How does that work for you?
Have a good solid 2 weeks. Don't just try and do a few days here.
If you're bivocational and you're limited, but if you're in full-time ministry, you need 3 weeks, minimum 2 Sundays and 3 full weeks. I would think in one hit as a minimum if you can do it. I know that's hard, but for some because of different situations, but I personally think that that's a minimum.
Yeah, do you so much good.
It would do you good, and put that in. Hey, and we would love to support one another. So we're looking to sort of kind of create a bit of a community around this. So if this is encouraging you and you want to reach out to us, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach out to us on our socials, and some people have already been doing that and just contacting us. All the information is in the show notes. And maybe if we can set up a Ministry Matters support network, not where we're supporting people, but we're supporting one another. We're networking together a little bit to encourage one another and spur one another on, especially in these areas.
Share some ideas about some of this
what
stuff.
works for you. Yeah, because we're talking from our context, and every context is different. But I have to think there is a way to make this work. If this is a spiritual principle, then regardless of whether you're a church, a micro church with 5 people or 10 people, or you're a church with 500 people, there will be a way to work within your context, because rest is a fundamental part of the way we are created. Therefore, let's have faith that God will give us the solutions, and the church will be resilient. It will last without us. We're not that important. We give God our best, and he takes care of the rest. All right.
Great. Let's finish up there. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks. Looking forward to hearing from you. See you next time, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Ministry Matters podcast. Hey, if this podcast has been an encouragement to you, or you think it could be to others, we'd be so grateful if you'd share it with your friends on the socials. So before you head back into your day, if you could take a moment to like our Facebook and Instagram pages and share them with your friends, that would be awesome. You can find us by searching @Ministry Matters Podcast, all one word. And one last thing that just helps the podcast algorithm to work for us. We'd really appreciate it if you could take a minute to rate and review our podcast. Be sure to click that follow button wherever you listen to your podcasts, so every new episode will be loaded straight to your device. And for those of you watching on YouTube, be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when a new episode drops. All the links you need are in the show notes. So thanks so much for being with us today, and we look forward to talking to you in the next episode.